Welcome to Insight, concise comment on current issues from the Jubilee Centre. Today we're at our winter conference and we're talking to Dr. Jonathan Burnside, Reader in Biblical Law at the University of Bristol. Jonathan, this morning you were explaining the biblical understanding of land and property, and you argued that the biblical concept of property is much more complex than our modern thinking. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, I think the modern approach to property sees property and land, particularly, as simply a form of cash exchange. It's a liquid asset, it's a commodity which you can liquidate in an economically fungible asset. And that ultimately means that you needn't have any particular commitments to managing your land particularly well, because you can always alienate it and sell it and buy something better somewhere else. In biblical law and biblical society, it's very different because the land is, if you like, your gateway into a whole series of significant relationships. It's land as covenant as opposed to land as commodity, which is the way in which we generally tend to think of it. And the relationships which land gives you access to is, first of all, and most importantly, a relationship with God, who gives the land to you, in the case of Israel, the promised land for the chosen people. But because the land is received as a gift, it also means that creates a whole lot of horizontal relationships with the people in need, because if you've received it as a gift, you have to be generous in terms of how you use it with other people. And lastly, and I think very significantly in the current environmental context, you hold the land not as an individual with an absolute title to it. You hold it as a member of a line, therefore with obligations to those who've held the land before you, your ancestors, but also to those who hold the land after your descendants. So because the land that you've got is the only land that you or your descendants will ever have, that has huge environmental implications because you can never alienate it absolutely, so you've jolly well got to take care of it. So it's a much more complex understanding of land because it sees land as the gateway to a bundle and a network of relationships, which we simply do not think about land, certainly in United States and America in that way.
So Jonathan, you said that, this morning that there are questions of justice right at the heart of our relationship with the land. Can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Yes, what I mean is that land is obviously a form of economic security for many people in the world today, and certainly also in biblical Israel. So having the right policies on land would also give you the right policies in relation to questions of justice and particularly social welfare. So this is all seen in the biblical laws of the Jubilee, which we've of course heard quite a lot about in terms of the Jubilee 2000 and Drop the Debt campaign. But the other feature of the Jubilee land laws is that it reunites families with land where their land has been alienated or sold for a short period, or the leasehold has been sold for a short period, in order to deal with the problem of debt. Now, in those situations, biblical law provides that the family is reunited with that land every 49 years. Now, the significance of this is that it reunites families which otherwise would be falling into a cycle of debt and dependency with the original means of production. So you're preventing there being a permanent underclass, and you're also meaning that subsequent generations don't have to pay for or suffer the collateral damage of the problems of a previous generation. So you're preserving incentives and you're also promoting justice.
Can you try to give us a couple of examples of ways in which some of these principles that you're discussing could find resonance or application today?
Well, I think one of the issues is the need for roots. We do want to feel a sense of belonging, and even in urban environments where we don't necessarily have discrete neighbourhoods or physically discrete neighbourhoods, we do nevertheless have a strong sense of attachment or locality to small geographically defined territories. And the Bible and biblical law does manifest a deep and abiding concern for roots, because at the end of the day we can only sustain so many relationships over a given area. And the fact is, for a lot of us in the West, That's under stress and strain. There's a lot of anonymity. It takes us an awful lot of time to keep up relationships with family members, work colleagues, neighbours who maybe all living in a lot of different places. So policies which help to promote co-location, either of families or creating a greater degree of overlap between all of those different relationships, will help to give us a sense of place, a sense of rootedness. This also spills over into housing policies and land reform, which is about giving people access to the means of production so that they have the means to escape from a cycle of dependency and create things for themselves. And, you know, this may seem like pie in the sky, but we have seen all kinds of land reform revolutions going on around the world. I think, for example, of South Korea. In the space of just 2 years, between 1952 and 1954, the number of independent South Korean farmers jumped from 50% to, I think, 95%. And when you have land reform, you give people access to means of production, you also help to create an entrepreneurial economy. No surprise that South Korea has been one of the great success stories as the Asian tiger of the late 20th century. So in all of these ways, biblical law does speak very powerfully to systems of land tenure and land ownership today.
Jonathan Burnside, thank you very much.
Thank you.